When your wife says, "Don't worry, I won't be jealous," it's not a compliment, it's a warning. Brittany and I had lived together for 7 years. 7 years that I considered happy. 7 years during which I thought I knew this woman inside and out. We met at a charity event in downtown Chicago, where she was volunteering and I was representing my company. She had this infectious laugh that filled the room, and when she smiled at me across the buffet table, I knew my life was about to change. Our courtship was a whirlwind. We went from that first conversation about the bland chicken at the charity dinner to moving in together within 8 months. She was everything I thought I wanted, spontaneous where I was careful, adventurous where I was cautious. She balanced me out, or so I believed. Our wedding was small but beautiful, held in her parents' backyard in Michigan. Her best friend Ashley was the maid of honor, and I remembered thinking how lucky Brittany was to have such a loyal friend. But it turned out I didn't know anything at all. Everything started that Tuesday when Ashley came to visit, Brittany's best friend from their college days. They had always been inseparable, and I was genuinely happy that my wife had such a close person in her life. Ashley often stopped by our house. We would have dinner together, watch movies, play board games. Normal friendly gatherings. She was funny, charming, and seemed like a great friend. I never thought twice about her visits. But this time something changed. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on at first. Initially, it was just jokes. Ashley made some double entendre comment about my shirt, then accidentally touched my shoulder, leaving her hand there a bit longer than necessary. I smiled, considering it innocent flirting, nothing serious. My name was Thad, I was 38 years old, and I had always been a faithful husband. The thought of crossing that line had never even entered my mind. I loved Brittany, or at least I loved who I thought she was. But the next day Ashley came again. And again. She started appearing more frequently than usual. We lived in a quiet suburb of Chicago, in a 3-bedroom house with a small garden that Brittany loved to tend. Our life was predictable, comfortable. I worked as a project manager for a construction company. Brittany was a graphic designer who worked from home. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our weekend traditions. Everything seemed perfect. Ashley's visits became part of that routine, but they were changing in ways I couldn't ignore. Her touches became bolder, her looks longer and more intense. She would find excuses to be near me, to brush past me in the hallway, to sit next to me on the couch even when there was plenty of space elsewhere. One time, when Brittany went out of the room to answer a phone call, Ashley moved closer to me on the sofa, too close, and whispered something about how she liked men who could keep their word. The comment struck me as odd. Keep my word about what? I hadn't made any promises to her. I moved away, feeling uncomfortable for the first time in my own home. Ashley, stop. This isn't right. She laughed, so easily, so naturally, as if I had just told her a joke. Her eyes sparkled with something I couldn't quite identify. Amusement? Challenge? Something else entirely? Don't worry, Thad. Brittany doesn't mind. I froze. My heart started beating faster, but not from excitement, from anxiety. A cold sensation spread through my chest. What had she just said? How could Brittany not mind something we'd never discussed? Something that clearly crossed boundaries? What do you mean by that? Ashley just smiled enigmatically and walked to the kitchen where Brittany was making coffee. I sat there, stunned, trying to process what had just happened. Through the doorway, I could hear them laughing together, their voices light and carefree. It was the same laugh I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago, but now it sounded different. Foreign. Like I was hearing it for the first time, and understanding it was never meant for me. That evening, after Ashley left, I decided to talk to my wife. The house felt different somehow, as if the walls had shifted and nothing was quite where it should be. We were sitting in our bedroom, the same bedroom where we'd made love countless times, where we'd talked about our dreams of having children someday, where we'd comforted each other during hard times. Now it felt like I was sitting in a stranger's room. I was trying to find the right words, rehearsing them in my head over and over. How do you tell your wife that her best friend is making advances? How do you express discomfort without sounding paranoid or accusatory? Brittany, we need to talk about Ashley. She looked up from her phone, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. She'd been scrolling through Instagram, double-tapping pictures of her friends' vacations and new pets. The casual normalcy of it all made what I was about to say feel even more surreal. What about her? Her tone was neutral, maybe even slightly bored. She set the phone down on the nightstand next to her half-empty water glass and our wedding photo, the one where we were cutting the cake, both of us laughing as frosting smeared across my cheek. She's acting strange, flirting with me. And today she said something very odd. Brittany put down her phone and turned to me. There was no surprise on her face, no indignation, no protective jealousy. Just a calm, patient expression, like a teacher waiting for a slow student to finish asking a question. And what did she say? That you don't mind. My wife was silent for a few seconds, and during those seconds, I felt my entire world tilt on its axis. She wasn't rushing to reassure me. She wasn't laughing it off. She wasn't doing any of the things I expected her to do. Instead, she just sat there, looking at me with those green eyes that I'd once thought held all the honesty in the world. Then she calmly nodded. Well, she's right. I couldn't believe my ears. The bedroom suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, a rapid drumming that seemed to echo off the walls. What? Thad, don't make this into a problem. Nothing terrible is happening. I won't be jealous of you. Ashley and I, we did this before. It's not a big deal. The words came out of her mouth so casually, as if she was telling me about a recipe she wanted to try or a movie she'd seen. There was no hesitation, no shame, no recognition that what she was saying was destroying me from the inside out. What do you mean did this before? My voice sounded strange even to my own ears, hollow, distant, like I was hearing myself speak from underwater. Brittany sighed, and in that sigh, I heard something that cut deeper than any of her words, impatience. She was impatient with me for not understanding, for not immediately accepting this revelation, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. In college, we constantly exchanged partners. It was fun. Nobody cared. We were all adults. It was the early 2000s, things were different. Everyone was experimenting, exploring. It was liberating. She said this like she was explaining a cultural phenomenon, an anthropological fact. Like she was describing someone else's life, not revealing a fundamental aspect of who she was. I felt the room spinning around me. The walls with their carefully chosen paint color, Brittany had insisted on warm sand instead of plain beige, seemed to close in. The framed photos of our vacations together mocked me from their places on the dresser. That trip to Maine, the weekend in Nashville, the cruise where we'd celebrated our 5th anniversary. Had she been thinking about this the whole time? Had she been comparing me to others? But we're married. How can you suggest such a thing? She laughed, easily, carelessly, as if we were discussing where to go for the weekend or what to have for dinner. That laugh that I'd once found so charming now sounded like breaking glass. Because I trust you, and I know you'll come back to me. Marriage isn't a prison, Thad. We're not living in the 1950s. People have evolved. Relationships have evolved. Why should we limit ourselves based on outdated social constructs? She reached for my hand, but I pulled away instinctively. She frowned slightly at that, a small crease appearing between her eyebrows. I couldn't speak. I just stared at her and tried to comprehend who this person was in front of me. Was this the same woman I married? The woman who cried during our wedding vows? The woman who said she wanted to grow old with me, just me, only me? Thad, you're being dramatic, she continued when I didn't respond. Ashley is beautiful, you'd enjoy yourself, and it would strengthen our marriage. Studies show that couples who explore together stay together. It removes the temptation to cheat because there's no secrecy, no lies. Everything is open and honest. Open and honest. The words should have been comforting, but instead, they felt like a betrayal of their own meaning. The next few days I spent in a fog. Everything felt unreal, like I was walking through a dream, or rather, a nightmare. I went to work, sat in meetings, reviewed blueprints and budgets, but nothing registered. My colleagues asked if I was feeling okay. I told them I might be coming down with something. It wasn't entirely a lie. I felt sick, but the sickness was in my soul, not my body. Brittany acted as if nothing had happened. She kissed me goodbye in the mornings, asked about my day when I came home, cooked dinner, watched TV beside me on the couch. She was playing the role of the perfect wife, and if I didn't know better, I might have believed everything was normal. But I did know better now. That was the problem. Ashley continued to come over. And now, knowing what I knew, every interaction felt tainted. The way she touched my arm. The way she laughed at my jokes. The way she looked at me when Brittany wasn't watching. It was all calculated, all part of a game I had never agreed to play. I tried to focus on work, throwing myself into a new commercial project we'd just landed. It was a strip mall renovation, nothing exciting, but it required attention to detail and long hours. I welcomed the distraction. My business partner, Dave, noticed my distraction during a client meeting where I nearly agreed to specifications that would have cost us thousands in overruns. "You okay, man?" he asked after the clients left. "You seem out of it." "Just some stuff at home," I muttered. "Want to grab a beer and talk about it?" I almost said yes. Almost unburdened myself to someone who might understand, might offer some perspective. But what would I say? That my wife wanted me to sleep with her best friend? That she'd revealed a whole secret life from before we met? It sounded insane even in my own head. "Maybe another time," I told Dave. But the worst was yet to come. A week later, Brittany went on that same girls' weekend that she and Ashley had been planning for several months. Spa treatments, relaxation, female bonding. That's what she told me. They were going to a resort upstate, one of those fancy places with hot springs and overpriced massages. She'd shown me the brochure, talked excitedly about the meditation classes and organic cuisine. I'd encouraged her to go, thinking she needed a break, that maybe some time apart would help us both clear our heads. Now, knowing what I knew, the trip took on a different meaning. But I said nothing. I kissed her goodbye, watched her pack her bag with her nicest clothes. Why would you need cocktail dresses for a spa weekend? And tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. I stayed home, trying to collect my thoughts, trying to figure out what to do next. Should I confront her more seriously? Suggest marriage counseling? Just accept this new reality she'd presented? The house felt empty without her, but also somehow cleaner, like a contaminated space that was finally being aired out. Coincidence? Fate? Call it what you want. But that's when Mark called me, an old friend who worked at the hotel where Brittany and Ashley had gone. We'd been college roommates, Mark and I. He'd gone into hotel management, while I went into construction. We didn't see each other often anymore, but we kept in touch, exchanged texts on birthdays, met up for drinks once or twice a year. He was a good guy, honest and straightforward, which is probably why he struggled with what he was about to tell me. "Hey Thad, listen. I don't know if I should tell you this, but..." His voice was tight, uncomfortable. I could hear background noise, the clinking of glasses, muffled conversation, elevator music. He was calling from work. "What is it, Mark?" "Your wife is here. At the hotel. With her friend Ashley." "Yeah, I know. They're on a spa weekend." "Thad." He paused, and in that pause I heard everything I needed to know. "They're not at the spa. They're at the bar. With two men." My hand tightened around the phone. The room seemed to contract around me. "What?" "I saw them myself. They were laughing, drinking, flirting. Really flirting, not just being friendly. And then..." He hesitated again. "Then they went upstairs. Brittany with one guy, Ashley with the other. They went to the rooms, Thad." I couldn't breathe. The phone felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "But that's not all," Mark continued, his voice barely above a whisper now, as if speaking it louder would make it more real. "Later that night, I was doing rounds, checking on some issues with the heating system on the 4th floor. I saw them switch. Brittany came out of one man's room and went to the other one. They swapped partners, Thad. Like it was planned. The phone slipped from my fingers. It bounced once on the carpet and lay there, Mark's tinny voice still emanating from it, saying my name, asking if I was there, apologizing for being the bearer of bad news. I slowly picked up the phone. "Mark, are you absolutely sure it was her?" "Positive. I even checked the registry. The room is under her name." "I'm sorry, man. I thought you should know." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room for hours. I didn't turn on any lights. I just sat there as the sun set and the room grew dark around me, replaying every moment of my relationship with Brittany. Everything made sense now. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. College. Partner swapping. Her calmness about Ashley. This wasn't a proposal, it was a confession. She just wanted to legitimize what she'd been doing behind my back this whole time. She wanted my permission retroactively, wanted to normalize her betrayal, so she wouldn't have to feel guilty about it anymore. How many times? That was the question that kept circling my mind. How many girls' weekends had there been over our 7 years together? How many conferences for her freelance graphic design work? How many visits to her parents where she went alone because I had to work? I pulled out my laptop and checked our credit card statements going back months, years. There, charges at hotels when she'd said she was staying with friends. Restaurant bills for amounts that couldn't have been just her and Ashley. Uber rides to parts of the city she had no reason to be in. The evidence had always been there. I just hadn't been looking for it, because I'd trusted her. What a fool I'd been. When Brittany returned home 2 days later, tanned and happy, glowing with what I now recognized as the satisfaction of a successful deception. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I had learned long ago from watching my parents' bitter divorce that anger was a weapon that hurt the wielder more than the target. Instead, I had spent those 2 days preparing. I'd consulted with a divorce attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chun, who had been recommended by Dave. She'd listened to my story without judgment, taken notes, and outlined my options. Illinois was a no-fault divorce state, which made things simpler. We had no children, thank God. The house was in both our names. Assets would be split evenly unless I could prove infidelity, which Mark's testimony might help with, but Ms. Chin advised against a contested divorce. "It's expensive, emotionally draining, and rarely worth it," she'd said. "Get out clean. Start fresh. Don't let this consume years of your life." I'd also gone to the bank and opened a separate account, transferring half of our savings. It was my legal right, and I wasn't going to be caught without resources. I'd changed the password on my personal email and computer. I'd made copies of all our important documents. I'd done everything Ms. Chin suggested. The papers were ready. All they needed was signatures. Brittany came through the front door with her rolling suitcase, her hair lighter from the sun, wearing a sundress I'd bought her for her birthday last year. She looked beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. That had never been the problem. "Hey honey," she called out, dropping her bag by the door. "I missed you. The spa was amazing, but I'm so glad to be home." She came over to kiss me, and I let her. It felt like kissing a stranger. "How was it?" I asked, my voice even. "Wonderful. The hot springs were incredible, and they had this meditation class that was surprisingly not terrible. Ashley and I got couples massages. Well, best friends massages? Is that a thing?" She laughed that laugh. "We should go together sometime. I think you'd like it." The lies came so easily to her. Not even lies of commission, but lies of omission, which were somehow worse. She was editing reality, cutting out the parts that didn't fit the story she wanted to tell. "That sounds nice," I said. She looked at me more closely then, perhaps noticing something in my tone. "Are you okay? You seem a little off." "I'm fine. Just tired. Long week at work." She accepted this without question, already pulling out her phone to show me photos. Pictures of the resort grounds. Pictures of her and Ashley in fluffy white robes, holding champagne glasses, their faces bright with laughter. Pictures of sunsets and artfully arranged meals. A carefully curated album of a trip that never happened the way she was presenting it. I looked at the photos and nodded at the appropriate moments. Inside, I was dying. That night, after she'd unpacked and showered and we'd had dinner, she made pasta, one of my favorites, probably feeling guilty on some subconscious level. I went to my study. It was a small room off the living room that I'd converted into a home office. Brittany rarely came in here. It was my space. I took out the folder from the locked drawer where I'd hidden it. The divorce papers were printed on heavy cream-colored stock, official and final. I read through them one more time, making sure everything was in order. Then I carried them out to the dining room table and set them down. It was almost midnight. Brittany was in the bedroom, probably scrolling through her phone, maybe texting Ashley about their successful trip, maybe texting someone else. I didn't want to know. I walked into the bedroom. She looked up and smiled. "Coming to bed?" "In a minute. But first, I need you to see something. It's on the dining room table." She frowned slightly, puzzled, but got up and followed me. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts as pajamas, something she'd done since we first moved in together. It had seemed endearing once. Now it just seemed like another lie, another costume in the performance of our marriage. She reached the table and stopped, staring down at the documents. "What is this?" Her voice had changed, the playfulness gone. "Divorce papers." The word hung in the air between us, heavy and irrevocable. "What? Why?" I looked at her, really looked at her, trying to find some remnant of the woman I'd fallen in love with. But she was gone, if she'd ever existed at all. "I know about the weekend. About the men at the hotel. About everything." Her face went pale, the tan suddenly looking artificial, painted on. "Thad, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And you know what's the worst part? Not that you cheated on me, but that you tried to make it normal. You wanted me to join your game, so you wouldn't have to feel ashamed." Brittany stood frozen at the dining room table, one hand resting on the back of a chair, as if she needed it for support. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely shocked. The mask had slipped, and underneath it was something I couldn't quite identify. Panic, maybe, or the dawning realization that actions had consequences. How? How did you find out? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Does it matter? Yes, because whoever told you might have misunderstood what they saw. Brittany. I cut her off, my voice sharp. Don't make this worse by lying more. I know everything. Mark works at that hotel. He saw you. Saw both of you. With two different men. And then later, he saw you switch. So please, don't insult my intelligence by trying to explain it away. She sank into the chair, her legs apparently no longer able to support her. Her hands were shaking, I noticed. Good. She should shake. She should feel something, even if it was just fear of being caught. She started, then stopped. Started again. It wasn't supposed to happen. Which part? The cheating? Or me finding out? She flinched at the word cheating, as if it was a physical blow. We were just going to have fun. Ashley met these guys at the bar, and they were nice, and we were drinking, and it just happened. It didn't mean anything, Thad. It was just physical. It had nothing to do with us, with our marriage. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Nothing to do with our marriage? You were in a hotel room with another man, with two other men, and you think that has nothing to do with our marriage? Help me understand the logic there, Brittany. I'm genuinely curious how you've rationalized this in your head. Because I still love you, she burst out, tears starting to stream down her face. That didn't change. What I did there, what happened with them, it was just sex. Just bodies. But what we have is real. It's deeper than that. I corrected quietly. What we had. Past tense. She shook her head frantically, tears flying. No, Thad, please. We can work through this. People make mistakes. We can go to counseling, we can... This wasn't a mistake, Brittany. Mistakes are accidental. This was a choice. A series of choices. You chose to go to that bar. You chose to flirt with those men. You chose to go to their rooms. You chose to betray everything we built together. And you know what? I could maybe forgive one drunken night of bad judgment. But that's not what this is it? She didn't answer, just stared at her hands. How long? I asked. How long has this been going on? Thad. How? Long. She drew in a shaky breath. Since college. Ashley and I, we had this arrangement. We liked the excitement, the freedom. When I met you, I tried to stop. I really did. For the first couple of years, I was faithful. I swear I was. But then Ashley came back into my life. She'd moved to Chicago for work, and we started hanging out again, and you went back to your old habits. It was only a few times. Just when we'd go on trips together, away from our normal lives. It was like a separate world, something that didn't touch what you and I had. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. Everything you're saying is making this worse. You're not even sorry for what you did. You're just sorry you got caught. There's a difference. I am sorry. She stood up, reaching for me, but I stepped back. I'm so sorry, Thad. I never wanted to hurt you. I thought if you didn't know, it wouldn't matter. And when I suggested you and Ashley could, I thought maybe if we were doing it together, as a couple, it would bring us closer. That's what those articles say about open marriages, and I never wanted an open marriage. You never asked me if that's what I wanted. You just decided unilaterally that the rules of our marriage were whatever you wanted them to be. She crumpled back into the chair, sobbing now. Part of me, a small, dying part, wanted to comfort her. 7 years of loving someone doesn't disappear instantly, even when that love has been betrayed. But I stayed where I was, arms crossed, watching her cry. I don't understand, she finally said between sobs. Why did you marry me if you were just going to leave when things got complicated? Marriage is supposed to be for better or worse. The audacity of that statement almost made me laugh again. Things didn't get complicated, Brittany. You were unfaithful. Repeatedly. Those are very different things. And I'll answer your question if you answer mine. Why did you marry me if you already had so many men? Why go through the whole charade of wedding vows and promises if you had no intention of keeping them? She looked up at me, mascara running down her face, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine regret. But then she spoke, and I realized it was just self-pity. I do love you, Thad. In my way. I wanted the stability you offered. The partnership. The life we built. I also wanted my freedom. I thought I could have both. Lots of people do. Lots of marriages have arrangements. Arrangements require agreement from both parties. You can't make an arrangement by yourself and then expect the other person to just accept it when they find out. I walked over to the table and picked up a pen, setting it down firmly next to the papers. Sign them, Brittany. We're done. What about the house? Our things? The life we built? I looked around the dining room, at the table we'd picked out together at an estate sale 3 years ago, at the light fixture she'd insisted on, at the photos on the walls chronicling our supposedly happy marriage. Keep it all. I don't want any of it. Every piece of furniture, every picture, every object in this house is tainted now. I don't want to take any of this into my next life. Where will you go? I've already rented an apartment. I'm moving out this weekend. She stared at the papers for a long moment, then slowly picked up the pen. Her hand hovered over the signature line. Is there really no way to fix this? She asked one last time, her voice small and broken. No, I said simply. There isn't. She signed. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Brittany didn't put up a fight. Perhaps she felt guilty, or perhaps she simply saw no point in resisting. Ashley stopped responding once she realized her plan had failed. I started a new life. A new job, a new apartment, new friends. People asked why I got divorced, and I always gave the same answer. We wanted different things from marriage. It was the truth. I wanted fidelity, respect, genuine intimacy. She wanted fun without consequences. A year later, I ran into Mark by chance at a coffee shop. Listen, I heard that Brittany and Ashley aren't speaking anymore, he said. Seems like something happened between them. What exactly? Ashley met a guy and wanted a serious relationship. She told Brittany she didn't want to play these games anymore. And Brittany couldn't accept it. I smiled into my coffee. The irony was too obvious. Sometimes people get so caught up in the game that they forget. Sooner or later, the music stops. And when it does, they're left alone with their choices. Brittany made her choice. And now she had to live with the consequences. And me? I finally understood that the best revenge isn't anger or drama. It's simply walking away and building something better. Something real. With someone who understands that love isn't about sharing partners. It's about choosing one person again and again, every single day. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.